Okay, can you hear? Oh my gosh, can you hear me now? Hi guys, can you hear me? It's the start of the 10 days of darkness. Hi Tara, no sound. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna have to start again. Can you hear me now? Yes. I love you guys. Thank you for sitting there for what, the last 20 minutes almost, 15 minutes. Oh gosh, you're wonderful. I love you. Thank you so much. Okay, so obviously I have to edit this for the replay. Bless you. Thanks for being here. Thank you for letting me know. I just saw your hearts. I wasn't reading the comments. Okay, let's start again, shall we? This is so fun. Okay. All right. My heart is racing right now, by the way. My heart, since I sat down just minutes before to speak to you, my heart really started racing. And I was like, whoa, I don't know if it's just me or if it's you or you're feeling this energy. Um, Maybe it's just because I'm like really speaking into something which I'm feeling is really, really big. I'm feeling it. So I hope you're feeling it too. Let's share in that. So, yes. Okay, so let me start again. Welcome to Self Love Talks, my beautiful angels. I love you so much. Thank you to all my subscribers, to those of you that rock up with me every week live. I love you. Thank you for supporting my message and for my channel. And to all of those who are new watching this live or replay, welcome. It's great to have you. Please consider subscribing and liking if you like my content and this is helpful to you and you're enjoying it, because that helped boost the channel and I really enjoy that. So thank you so much. So today I'm talking about the eclipse preparation and stepping through the shadow. And I'm going to be talking about moving from the known to the unknown, what that looks like, how that works, why it's important, because we do have this epic event that's coming up, the eclipse on the 8th. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is so epic and what that means and why I think we should be using this moment for our own metamorphosis, our own awakening, and what impact that I believe is going to have and is having for us, why that is so important, and how to do that. So your emotional body is on fire as well, Jean. Yeah. And Robert's saying intense times. Yes, right? It's almost like, whoa. I feel like if we're all holding hands together, like we'd be like conducting lightning or something. It's like supercharged because these energies are really intense. And we are, of course, in the middle of the eclipse season, and the eclipse season happens twice a year. So this is not like a new thing. It happens all the time. There's always eclipses. Most of the time, they're partial eclipses. But we start with a lunar eclipse. 2 weeks later, we have the solar. 2 weeks later, we have another lunar eclipse. So we have this, what the astrologers call the eclipse season or the eclipse window. Now, as I was saying, but you didn't hear me, the last total eclipse apparently was in 2016 or 2017. I can't remember. I'm useless at remembering specific dates and things and times. But I'm not obviously an astrologer. I'm not an expert on these things. I just really, really enjoy listening to that information and the relationship that we have with our planetary bodies. For me, it's like having a relationship with the organs in my body. Like, you might not think of that as an important thing, but if you don't have a relationship with your heart or your liver or your stomach, then you're not in relationship with yourself. You're not connected, and things that are disconnected tend to not work. Right? So it's like plugging the consciousness in to those parts of ourselves. And then, of course, you get the conductivity, you get the connection, you get the relationship, you get the flow of energy and communication, and things work better. And so my connection to my physical bodily organs is really important. They're each giving me messages. They're each doing something for me as part of my well-being, as part of my life experience. And I think of the planets like that they are heavenly organs, if you like. They all have a sound, they all have a frequency, and they all have an impact on us all the time, whether we realize it or not, whether we believe it or not. That is actually happening on an energetic level. So when it comes to big events like this with the sun, and for me, and I think I can say this, is for everybody across the board, the sun is our representation of the divine masculine. It's like the physical manifestation of God that we can see, because it is the ultimate light for our planet. It sustains life. Without it, we wouldn't exist. And it's, akin to that God vibration, that God consciousness, that without which we would not be here. We all come from a creative source. We all come from a supreme information place, whatever you believe that is, a higher consciousness. And for me, the sun represents that. And so the sun is always giving us information. It's sending us light, and light is information. And if you were able to see the information encoded in the light of the sun, and I would call this, and I do call this, light language. And I actually have had times in my life where I've physically seen the codes that come from the sun. And I mean physically, as in my eyes are looking at an actual thing. I'm not imagining it. I'm not in a meditation, visualizing it or something. I'm actually seeing it through my eyes, as real as I'm looking at my computer screen right now to connect with all of you. And like, it's in front of my eyes. And the way that I perceive these light codes is like kind of, what would you call them? Like clusters of sacred geometrical solids, except they're not solid, it's in light, but light still has a density. So it has a certain level of solidity, but they're clusters. And this information, it's like programs, instructions that get sent to the earth, the elementals, and the elementals then create from those instructions. Much like when we want to assemble a piece of furniture from IKEA and we're looking at the instruction manual and we're following the instructions, and then we can actually build from those basic elements and create something out of basic elements. And so the earth elementals actually always do that. They're receiving the information codes from the sun and creating. And you might not agree with me, you might not believe me. That's okay. I'm just telling you this is my experience, right? This is what I actually see. But let's take that on a personal level. So how is the sunlight informing us? What information do we get from the sun? Aside from warmth and heat and light that we obviously need to survive, what codes, what information are we receiving on a subconscious level from the cosmos, from the sun, from these planetary bodies? And what does that do to us? What impact does that do? Are we receiving? And what if we could receive that consciously? So that's a whole another conversation. But let's say that we are receiving information. And so what happens when that sun is eclipsed? So yes, it's an eclipse of light for us physically, an eclipse of the warmth. And it's quite a spectacular thing to experience and to see. And the ancients, our ancestors, revered these solar eclipses. They were also very fearful of what other events, maybe catastrophic events or signs that represented may happen, as a result. Maybe huge amounts of sacrifices were given during solar eclipses. That was always a huge tradition, going way back to the Mayans and the Incas. They would, it's quite horrific, but mass slaughter would happen as a sacrificial offering to the sun god in order to appease God, in order to appease the sun and to encourage it to shine its light again. We might think, well, that was a long time ago. We're more advanced than that. But I'm going to invite us to question, well, really, are we? And what if those sacrifices, clearly you and I, we're of that similar consciousness. We are not interested in physically sacrificing any living being, I'm sure. I would hope not. But still, that ancient ritualistic practice, those ancient beliefs, they're still embedded in our psyche. And I know this because I've read it in people. Like, we might think, okay, I'm just a singular being. I only have the memories in my mind of what's happened in my lifetime, consciously or subconsciously. But actually, when I read into the soul library of people and I read into the subconscious of the information that we can't readily access, that's stored way back there in that Akashic records, in that library. And it's like, actually, our souls have been here again and again and again. We are a walking, living library of information. And that's not just written in the soul, but it's written in the DNA, it's written in the cells, it's written in the water of our very bodies. It's like that information of those ancient practices, that ancient information is stored within us. So on some level, what if we are still partially afraid, maybe, of appeasing that God, of wondering about death and new life, because that's what an eclipse represents. It's the death and rebirth situation. And so what if a part of our souls, or what if that memory in us gets a little bit afraid about that? And what if a part of us on a subconscious level actually is still tapped into or operating on a subtle level, that sense of, I need to do something to appease God. I need to do better. I need to sacrifice something. And I'm going to offer that we do not have to run on all programs. And there is a choice element involved in that, of where you bring your consciousness to, with an open mind and an open heart, to recognize where your fear programs are running in you, what you are actually afraid of. If you are afraid of death, even if you're afraid of life, actually, which I think is perhaps even a more prevalent thing. But what if that sacrifice still happens, in that when we go through an eclipse like this, that the sacrifice is actually letting go of beliefs that aren't actually serving us, that are no longer needed, and that perhaps were never actually real in the first place. Are you following me? So let's talk about the shadow, and let's talk about the known and the unknown. And to do that, I want to focus on the ego for a moment, and how we perceive reality, what we perceive as ourselves in terms of that letting go process. Okay, so we're like, okay, we all of us have an ego. We have and this is the way I see it, right? And bear in mind that I read inside people's bodies and heads and souls and everything. And so the ego, as I see it, let me get a little. You see this? You see this memory card? It's like a storage thing that you click into your computer. And inside this little thing here is storage for memory, right? And so the ego is a lot like this, where it's plugged into this general area of the left hemisphere of the brain, like a chip installed in your head, that tells the rest of this physical matter, your energetic systems, your electrical systems, your organs, everything, that you are separate. It tells this energy of you that you are separate. It programs you. Ding, so that then you believe, it's like a inserted program, the ego, that tells you that you are separate, a separate being from everything else. You're not just a blur of light in a huge field of other light and other blurs of light, where you can't discern the difference between where I end and you start. With this ego, we have a very defined sense of physical self. This is me, and I stop here where my skin stops, and I don't extend into this area beyond my skin. And it also informs us, it informs our mind that we have a singular identity, that I am, that you are. This is me. This is me, Tara. That's you, Robert. That's you, Jean. That's you, Jess. That's you, Juji that's listening on this program right now. That's you, Autumn Rose, that tells you you are a singular separate being. And then with that, we have our own memories, we have our own beliefs, we have our own programmed information that our mind, that our egos have been programmed with. And not just passively and innocently as you do, you go through life and you learn this is how you behave, that's not how you behave, this is how you get love, that's not how you get love. It's not even that innocent and that simple. Our egos have been heavily, heavily programmed to an unfathomable, almost inconceivable amount. I don't think we realize just how heavily programmed we have been to not just identify as separate human beings, because in itself, that's quite lovely. It's like we get to have an individual, unique experience of life. That's beautiful. That's a gift. That's a great thing that the ego gives us. But beyond that, it really densely informs us that we are limited, that we are mostly helpless, that we are powerless, that we are codependent, that we suffer, that we're victims. And it installs within us so much fear programming that if we don't behave in a certain way, then maybe the sun will eclipse and it will be dark forever and God will reject us, and, or we will be attacked in some way, or we will be imprisoned in some way, or we will be shunned from society in some way just for being ourselves. If we don't conform to the norm that we have been programmed to believe is real. So it's like taking the all that you are beyond what even your conscious mind can fully grasp and squeezing it down really tightly and narrowing it to a very small bandwidth as to what we can see, taste, touch, smell, hear on this third dimensional physical realm. Like that this is reality, and everything or anything beyond that in those invisible realms doesn't exist. Like the realist will tell you, only that which we can see and touch and smell and taste with our normal senses is real. And therefore, what's happening in the world is real. The wars, the atrocities, the devastation, the ruining of our planet, the weather patterns, all of these terrible, terrible things, that's reality. And therefore, you better conform. Therefore, you better behave in a certain way. Therefore, you better like atone and be afraid, because you are helpless, you're a victim, everything else has more power than you do. Is this making sense? Are you with me? So we're told that this is the normal. This is reality. And our egos identify with that. And we go, okay, this is our known reality. And any sense of moving away from that known reality feels scary. And this is what I meet on almost a daily level, working with people, talking to them about unconditional self-love, talking to them about actualizing their soul potential. And of course, everybody wants that, right? You and I, conscious, loving beings, we all want that. We all want that sense of, I want to live from my full soul potential. I want to embody my full self. I want to self-actualize into my greatest power. I want to be that biggest, best, most amazing version of myself. I want to move out of the singularity and into the unity consciousness. I want to raise my vibration. I want to raise my consciousness, right? That's what most people come to me with. They want help to fulfill their potential, actualize their potential, and be more amazing, their fullest, most amazing selves, which feels like the unknown to them. And maybe it does to you too. Do you feel like, okay, you have a sense of that? You have a desire, a longing for that. Something inside of you is calling you. Something inside of you is like urging you. There's something more to me than just my ego, than just this reality. Are you with me? So that known reality that the ego perceives, and then which we would say is the known, we know that. And then there's the unknown, but that which you are called to, which is that expanded consciousness, that expanded sense of self, the unknown, the soul potential. Are you with me? So there's a lot of fear. People get really afraid when presented with the opportunity, when presented with this moment, with this window to say, okay, would now be a good time. You're feeling the urge, you're feeling the calling, you want something more. And not just for yourself, but for the whole planet, right? I think I can speak for almost everybody in saying that we all want more love on this earth. We all want more unity. We all want a higher degree of consciousness and awareness, and to go from just surviving into thriving. We don't want the war. We want more light, right? We want that more empowerment. We want that higher energy, that higher frequency for ourselves, but we want it for everybody else too. And that feels like something that feels genuinely sustainable, like that would sustain us, and not just sustain us as a basic level, but where we can actually thrive, or we're being our full selves together. Wow, right? We all want that. But the option of taking that step from that limited, constrained sense of ego self. Yeah, but this is my reality, and I've got this to deal with, and I've got this problem to deal with, and I've got this money issue to deal with, and I've got, the reality issues. And to say, okay, I want to move into that unknown soul reality, let's say, but I'm really kind of stuck in my ego reality, and I'm afraid to move from this known ego reality into that unknown soul reality. Is this making sense, right? There's a lot of fear. So even when people are presented with that, and I can genuinely offer a way to move from that ego, narrow sense of self into that bigger, expanded sense of self. And so it's a very tangible offer. It's a very real thing. It works. It's proven, done it tons of times over. And yet people are like, I really do want that. I want to follow my soul calling. I want to follow my soul path. I want to embody my full potential. But the actual doing of it feels terrifying for people. So they'll come up with reasons. They'll come up with excuses. Now, take this into your own life personally. Where are you limiting yourself with fear? Because there's a part of you that's going, well, there's this unknown space, this unknown aspect of you that you want to move towards, or you want to embody, but you're not doing it. There's a limitation, there's a fear, there's a, this, and this. Yeah, but I can't because not yet, I'm not ready. This, and this is holding me back. Like, how can you relate to that? What in your life right now are you afraid to let go of, or afraid to move towards? So coming back to this eclipse moment, or every now moment, is that opportunity, I feel. We don't have to just reserve this for special, big, magical, cosmic events that are happening. Every single now moment, every breath is another opportunity that you exist, that you can become conscious, that you can make a choice. I include myself in this. We can make a choice and say, where does my consciousness need to go? Where does my consciousness need to expand into and connect to bring these other aspects of me, the bigger me, into life. We can do that in any moment, but generally we don't. We're bogged down by the reality, the known reality. Now, with this eclipse, I've been listening to astrologers, and again, not an expert, don't know exactly why, couldn't tell you. So go and do your own research and go and watch the YouTube videos. Some fabulous people out there doing amazing work. And what I've learned about this eclipse is not only is it a full eclipse as opposed to a partial one that happens every 7 years or so, that this eclipse is a rare experience, a rare event that happens every 7,000 years. This eclipse has been a long anticipated, long awaited 7,000-year event. Now, we can hardly take that into our minds, right? It's like, what? Why? Couldn't exactly tell you. I hear these things and I'm like, whoa, and then I don't remember the details. So go and listen to that. But astrologers that I respect, this is what they're saying. And they've been building up to this for the last year, like talking about this event as coming, as pivotal, as very potent opportunity, as a potent moment. And you can bet that there are people who still operating very much from that fear program of let's make big sacrifices. And we don't really know to what scale, to what extent that these people want to do this. But I could pretty much put money on it that they are and they will be creating some kind of ritualistic sacrifice in order to make use of this eclipsed window moment where that sun is eclipsed, where the codes that come from the sun, the light that comes from the sun, that divine light that shines on us during that eclipse window of those 4 minutes, 28.1 seconds at its longest shadow time, that there will be sacrifices going on to appease those. It's like those ancient rituals, I'm willing to bet, are still being enacted for whatever purpose you can come up with. I'm going to leave that to you to decide or imagine what that is. I don't even want to get into that. But what if for us that this eclipse moment is a moment for us, is a portal for us to notice, to bring consciousness, to rebirth our consciousness through that shadow, to notice our fear, to become very, very conscious of it, and to become conscious of what we're afraid of, really. Because whenever you go into a very dark space, and it's scary because it's dark and you don't know what's in that darkness, some big monster might come out and jump out and gobble you all up or something, right? Or the boogie monster's going to get you. But when you shine a light into that dark space or into that dark cave, you're probably not likely to find a monster. You're probably likely just to actually be able to see what's really in there. And because you can see whatever you're going to face, even if it is a monster, because you're seeing it, the fear can lessen, because now that you can see it, you can do something about it. Whereas if you can't see it, you're powerless. And I believe that's what's been used against us in this programming of like, what we can't see, we are powerless over. Because we don't see the programming. We don't see where it actually originates from. We don't see why. We don't understand it. And some people will deny it altogether because it just seems so far-fetched, because that's not the real reality, right? So we don't know what we're fighting. That's far more scary. You don't know what's going to happen if you don't comply and if you don't do what you're told to do in this world. That fear is the thing that grips people. So what if in this eclipse window, and any time you like, now is a good time for anything, that you can actually choose to bring consciousness to bring a light to that shadow in you, that part in you that hasn't yet been met with the light, that dark unknown space. And maybe what that dark unknown space holds is not really monsters, but actually that which you are seeking. That apparently unknown aspect of you, which is your fuller, greater potential, your full soul, your truth, your glory, your own inner light that exists whether the sun is shining on you or not. Does this make sense? Not an external light, but the internal light of you. And bring that internal light into those spaces and really see your full self. What if this eclipse moment is an epically powerful, massively magnifying moment for us to do that? Wouldn't that be exciting? Now let's go back to the sacrificial element. What might we have to sacrifice? And with that, let me tie back in the known and the unknown realities. What if we have to sacrifice that known reality, the known paradigm of this normal ego programmed reality, that this is the known landscape? What if we're being invited to sacrifice that, to release it, to let it go, to give it back, to say, perhaps this that I relate to as reality, perhaps that's not actually real at all. Perhaps what I think I know, I don't actually know, because it's not real knowledge. It's belief. It's programming. It's conditioning. It's patterning. It's control against you or over you. Perhaps we don't actually really know what that is at all. Perhaps we're kind of deluded in thinking that we know what reality is, that if we can see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, then of course I'm a realist, I know what's real. Well, what if you don't? What if we don't? What if that's not actually real at all? Because if you could see, and I believe you can, if you want to, if you choose to, by the powers within you, to actually really start looking and see that this thing that we call reality on this earth, on this density plane, actually isn't dense at all. I interviewed a scientist recently, Mr. David Ash. I think it was him that said this. It may have been someone else that said, actually, everything that we experience as matter and solid is actually 96% space and only 4% density. So there's that scientific reference. But if we could actually see it, as I said, I believe we can, what you would see, I believe, would be similar to what I see. And that is such a complicated, incredible, multi-dimensional tapestry. And what's a tapestry? It's like loads of stitches that form a picture, right? One big picture formed up of loads of tiny little threads, all woven together. But imagine loads of those at different densities, at different frequencies, that create an overall, giving a third dimensional and more than third dimensional, multi-dimensional space in which to exist, where form appears real because of the slower densities, the lower densities rather. And where we get a sense of light, where we get a sense of shadow, where we get a sense of higher vibration and lower vibration, and higher feelings and lower feelings, and higher thoughts and lower thoughts, and every scale that you can imagine woven into this multi-dimensional tapestry, and sound and color and everything, all of those frequencies woven in, so that our senses, which are programmed to pick that up, they're designed to pick that up. So we have this range of frequency that we're experiencing. And like, I'm looking out of the window, I'm seeing the sun, I'm seeing the trees, I'm seeing the leaves. But in energetic form, when we break that down, it's not leaves and trees at all. It's patterns and waves and particles of light. So there's that. There's that. It's like, okay, that density that we think is real, that we relate to as our reality, perhaps what we think we know, we don't actually know at all. But what if this reality that we're so attached to, this worldly reality, this physical reality, this bodily reality, the money reality, the relationship reality, the political reality, what if that reality that we think we know, we don't actually know at all? And that we've been programmed to live in fear. So it's not like, oh, we're comfortable with the known and we're afraid of the unknown, and that's why we don't step into that higher, fuller potential of ourselves, because we're afraid of that, because that's what we've been told. What if we're actually constantly living in a state of fear? And what if we're afraid of not living in fear? What if we're afraid of letting go of a reality that perpetuates a state of normal fear, survival, victimhood, powerlessness, limited capacity, limited resources, limited sensory experience, limited knowledge, limited consciousness? That's our normal. We're in fear all the time. And we think, maybe because we've been told and programmed, that if we leave that and go for this unknown reality, the higher, greater self, the unity, the consciousness, that's the scary place, because that's the unknown. But what I'm saying, what if it's reversed? What if we actually do know ourselves as a soul? What if we know ourselves as that fuller, higher, greater consciousness, that potential, that divine expression in a human body that we are? What if we actually know that we are far more powerful than we're allowing ourselves to believe? What if we actually know that we are the light, that we are the love that we've been waiting for? What if we actually know that we're not separate at all, but we are all completely intrinsically connected as one whole conscious vibration, as a collective heart, mind, body awareness? What if we actually know that we are not separate at all from our source, from our creator, from our divine intelligence, wherever we came from, and not came from, but still are? What if we actually know that? What if that's why we get this urge, we get this feeling, we get this pull to get to know thyself, to tap in, to become conscious, to become still enough, to become self-realized, and to embody that which we are? What if that's what we actually know? And when we feel into that, because people think, well, is that scary? People think that's scary to move into that space. But when we feel into that, does that really feel scary? Is it really that you are afraid of being the all that you are, of being the light that you are, of being the powerful, beautiful, unique expression of your soul that you are, of fulfilling yourself, knowing yourself, and actualizing your gifts, actualizing your full spectrum of extrasensory, what we can call extra sensory awareness, which actually is your normal, but you don't know it. That's why it's called extra sensory. because it's out of the range of the normal. But what if that extrasensory is your normal? Because you know it on a deep level, you know. You know it in your subconscious, you know it in your waters, you know it in your bones. Why? Because that knowledge never left you. You are that knowledge. But the ego, and especially the programmed ego, and the programming has been designed to separate you from that knowledge and say, no, that's all woo-woo, that's all airy-fairy, that's not real. This hardcore reality where life is tough, where you must suffer, where we must fight one another, where we have to compete in survival for our resources and we must go to war. And we've been programmed that that's our reality. Does that make sense? It's flipped. And so, is it really scary? And so, what if, are you with me? What if we have an opportunity now? And I mean right now, not even waiting for the eclipse. And also the now of that eclipse moment, where we, pondering this, getting curious and going, what do I actually know? What am I actually afraid of? What if we use this moment, this opportunity, to surrender, to sacrifice the known reality of fear, programming, disempowerment? What if we sacrifice that? What if we gave it back to wherever it came from and said, well, I've tried this on for this lifetime, and maybe I've tried on this fear programming and this reality programming for a few lifetimes. Maybe I've been trying it on for thousands of years. I'm talking woo-woo again for those people who are not realists. But what if we can say, okay, I tried it. Yeah, actually, that's something that I've been taught to believe is real, but I don't actually know. I don't actually know. That's not my known reality. That's not my truth. And I'm not going to wear that anymore. I'm not buying into it anymore. Here, have it back. Yeah, I tried it, have it back. It's like returning an outfit to the store that you brought home, you thought it looked great, or the assistant in the shop told you, you look fab, honey, get that outfit. And you believed her and went, okay, I want to look fab. I've got approval. I'm going to buy the outfit. And it cost you a heap as well. But you take it home and you try it on and you go, actually, this really isn't me. And let's say that trying on phase has been eons, or even just a lifetime, if that's where your belief is right now. But what if you say, okay, I've been trying this on, actually, it doesn't suit me at all. Actually, it doesn't fit. It's not really who I am. It's not a true expression of me. I'm just going to return it to the store. No hard feelings. Thank you very much. Can I have my money back, please? Can I have my investment back, please? Can I have my power back, please? Can I have my own sense of choice back, that actually I know better than you, store assistant, of what works for me and what doesn't, because we trust ourselves. Okay, so that's a simple analogy. Obviously, we're talking about something far more detailed, far more complex, but it's like, actually, it's also really simple. What doesn't work for you? Is your sense of egoic reality, egoic sense of programmed version of you really working out for you? Does it really suit you? Does it really match you? Does it make you happy and fulfilled? Because if not, you've bought into a belief, not a reality. It's not known, it's only believed. And belief and knowing are not the same thing. And can we separate that and say, actually, that's not my truth. Here, have it back. And that's our opportunity to sacrifice that, to give it up. And say, I'm not going to live in fear anymore. I'm not going to live in survival mode. I'm not going to live from that place of a victim, of a terrified of what's going to come back to me. actually, fear isn't who I truly am. That's a control, that's a manipulation tactic, because essentially at heart, we are really innocent, pure beings. And when, you're born an innocent and pure being, are you not? You're absolutely born just a bundle of love. You're a beautiful little angel when you're born. All you do is love. That's all you know is unconditional love. That should tell you something. That should tell you something about where you came from before you came into this little body. Because that little baby you, that innocent, pure baby you, is just full of light and love. Your ego hasn't yet had a chance to be developed and programmed and told what's right and wrong and who you are and what you're capable of and what you should believe. So that pure innocence of you can so easily be impressed upon, so easily be manipulated, because that's what purity is. It's like it absorbs what's around, like distilled water just absorbs the toxic from the environment. It absorbs what's around. It's easily impressionable. You and I are easily impressionable. Everybody is. We're human beings. That's how we are made. That's how we're born. And so what if all of that stuff that's just been impressioned upon us, actually we have the power to be unimpressed with and to decondition ourselves and give it back and come back into that purity and own the power of that. Because when we're little babies, we don't yet know ourselves. We don't yet know that that's our power. We're naive in that sense. But we don't have to maintain our naivety. We can retain the innocence, because we do. You still have that innocence within you. You can't kill off the innocence. But the naivety doesn't have to be there anymore. We can say, what if that innocence in me, that pure light in me, that incredible, beautiful, higher consciousness, that power, that spirit, that energy, just feel in yourself right now what I'm talking about. That real you is the power. And what if there are certain forces out there that know that, and that's why the moment you're born, and even before you're born, whilst you're still in the womb, that impressing, that programming, that conditioning starts to sabotage you so that you don't realize yourself, so that we don't grow out of our naivety and grow into our power, that we stay helpless and naive and dependent. Does that make sense? Why would such a sabotage happen? Because you are the power. You're where it's at. It's not an unknown, it's a known. You know that this is the truth of you. Your heart tells you the truth. Your heart is the truth. Your heart knows the truth. Our ego mind doesn't. Are you with me? You're sensing, feeling, getting connected to this. I'm sure you are. I know that you are, because I'm not talking rocket science. It might sound complicated, but it really isn't. It's a return to innocence. It's a return to yourself. And maybe it does feel like a rebirth. Maybe it feels like our consciousness has been eclipsed, put into shadow, sabotaged. And maybe coming out of that does really feel like a rebirth, releasing a fear of death, releasing a fear of the end of the world, releasing a fear of the doom scenario where we're all going to be controlled by AI and, all our money's going to be taken from us and we're going to be in a credit score system and, and the war's going to carry on and we're all going to, whatever. Like, what if that, what if that's really, really not true? And you don't have to buy into it. You can just buy into yourself and be like, actually, the light in me is more powerful. And I'm going to sacrifice that. And I'm going to rebirth. I'm going to become conscious of. I'm choosing to actualize who I really am. And just by making that choice, and then when opportunities and moments, which is all the time, by the way, But when we have those opportunities and moments to make another choice, do you want to take the next step? Yes, I do. You have to sacrifice a bit more of the ego identity. You have to sacrifice a bit more of the programmed, conditioned reality. That's fine. Breathe. Move to what you already know within. Keep moving, keep stepping towards what you already know, who you already are, who you don't have to be a better version of, because you're already the most amazing version that could ever exist, ever. You've been created that way. It's the real you, the true you. There is no better version. There's the self-realized you. There's the self-embodied you. And every moment you can make a choice. From which reality am I going to live? From the known reality of the I know who I am, actually, and I'm knowing a bit more who I am every single time I breathe, every single time I wake up in the morning. Every single day, I'm going to get to know myself and embody myself and know that which I already know that I am more and more, and choose that path and open that gift of you. Because when we do, when you do that, when I do that, as we all do that, the light within, once recognized, gets brighter, becomes more powerful, it's liberated. Consciousness within us, the divine consciousness, let's call it, or the supreme consciousness, or the higher consciousness, or life itself, loves our little consciousness to tap in, connect in, get connected, get relating, and witness and realize that bigger consciousness that we are. It loves it. It's like, wow, I've been seen. Divine consciousness within you is like, wow, I've been seen. Finally, you showed up. She showed up. She saw me. Yay. We're whole again. We're not separate. Right? You become unseparate from your source. You're whole again. Everything amplifies from that place, because we always have a choice to get connected or to stay disconnected, to move into unity or to stay in separation, to move into the real known truth of reality of who you are, or to disconnect from that and be absolutely bombarded in this unreality, in this unknown space, because we don't know what's going to happen in the world tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen to us, what's going to be taken from us, what's going to be done to us. It's terrifying. Move out of that terrifying, that fearful space, because it's not actually scary to go within. It's the opposite. It's coming home. It's like not moving into the unknown is scary, but it's actually leave the fear and you won't be afraid. Leave your ego. You won't be afraid. Let your heart lead the ego. And this is something I was really thinking about. It's like the ego is designed to not lead, but to be led. It takes instructions. It can work things out. It doesn't know anything at all. It's just calculations. It's just information. It's not actual knowledge. It's just a bunch of beliefs. It's a bunch of information, which is really useful, but it doesn't actually know anything. What knows is your heart. This is always known, always will, always has, is knowledge of all that is, of all that you are in your heart. And so when your heart is the leader of your mind, of your ego, then the ego can settle into its place and feel secure again and feel safe again. And it just has to perform its job. It doesn't have to figure out how to lead you through life and how to solve, the problems of the world and find out how to, find out who you are and what love is all about. The ego will never know that. It's the slave to the heart, if you like. The heart is the leader. And when we have that prioritized in the right way, the mind can relax, the heart gets empowered, and everything else starts to connect and work. And then we're all connected on that heart frequency, not battling with our ego minds with each other. It's so beautiful. And those that actually do think that they can lead by their ego because they've got so disconnected from the real reality, for whatever reason, that ego goes out of control. We have the egomaniacs, we have the narcissists, we have the psychopaths. And these are the people that, or energies or entities, or let's just say is a thing without kind of naming it. It's just a thing that's happened where we have a huge amount of our global society of people getting stuck in this because they've got so separated from their source, because they're so bought into the fear, they're so bought into that program that they're just operating from a completely disorganized, disordered, out of order ego that now thinks it's running the show because there's no such thing as divinity. It's all by itself. It's lonely. It's alone. It's freaking out. Goes into like hyperdrive. So fighting against people, forces that are running on that program, there's no point. They're already terrified. It's up to them what they choose to do with that. They'll find their way home eventually. Everything does. We don't have to get involved in that. We don't have to attack them or hate them or fight them. That's utterly pointless. We don't even have to stop them. We just have to say, okay, you do your thing. I'm going to do mine. Bless you. I love you. We can bring in forgiveness, and we can talk about forgiveness on another one of these episodes. And we will do. Let's talk about forgiveness and go deep into that. We can also just actually say, I'm going to take my real self back, actually, and here's what isn't me, and live from that place. And, gather together and let's do this together, because there's so many more of us doing that. And so, in summary, I hope this is helping. I hope it's making sense for you. I hope it's giving you value. I'm just sharing what I feel, what comes to me, what I find like, wow, yeah, supportive and helpful. So I hope that this helps you as well. And so in that eclipse moment, I am certainly, it's going to be on the 8th, depending on where we are in the world, it's all going to be a different time for all of us, obviously. But I suggest that you research wherever you are in the world, exactly what time that's happening. And let's maximize this window. And during that eclipse phase of where the sun's being eclipsed, and then the 4 minutes, 28.1 seconds of that total darkness, and then out the other side, during that period, I hope that you will choose to do what's right for you, what you feel is your rightful thing to do from your own heart, from your own knowing inside. You don't have to listen to anything I say or anything anybody else says, because you know what's right for you. But my feeling is just being in the heart, listening to my heart, connecting to that voice of sovereignty, that beautiful divine knowing inside of me, and just staying there. That's what I'm going to choose to do. And be in the love, basically, simple way of saying it. Out of my ego, unplugging from whatever else is going on out there, whatever other stories, whatever's happening. I'm going to spend that eclipse time in here. And I will see you on the inside with that, because that's where we all meet. That's where we all are. And so I want to leave you with this possibility. I love your comments as well. Thank you for commenting, being here and sharing this with me. I want to leave you with this possibility that if you have that soul calling that I was talking about, where you're like, well, I want to know practically how. Yes, we can get into our hearts. For some people, that's not as easy said as done, because the level of disconnection is so great. It actually does feel scary, and it does feel hard to let go of the fear paradigm, and it's scary to let go of fear itself, and to step through that portal, to step through that shadow and meet their real selves and actualize themselves, and just to be in love and to love every single part of themselves. And, because when we love ourselves, it basically means we're ending between yourself and anything else, right? You are love. And when you love yourself, you're bringing yourself into unity with the love that you are. You're not holding yourself separate from love and saying, well, I'm not lovable and this part of me is not lovable. And how do you know if you're not fully loving yourself? Because your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual experiences, your bodies, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual bodies, will be suffering in some way. Because suffering equals disconnection from love, disconnection from source, disconnection from truth. That's at its most fundamental level. So we know when things are a bit wonky, they're not working out, we're having issues, we're having troubles, there's aspects of us that are still going unloved and in separation and not in connection with love. So I would say that's pretty much everybody, right? To various degrees. So to step into that decision, so I'm going to go on that journey. I'm going to relate to myself with unconditional love. I'm going to reclaim myself as love. I'm going to embody my full power, my full potential as love that I am, and include all that I am. And with that love, with that consciousness, awaken to my true self and embody my true self. And if that's something that you want to do, you have a calling for, and you're saying, right, actually, now is a good time. I'm ready, I'm willing to do that. And you want to do that with me, and you want to do that with the group that I'm running that starts on the 6th of May, please get in contact. You can send me a message below. You can go to my website, taraloveperry.com. You can send me an email, and I will send you information, if you haven't seen it already, about the self-love and soul reading training, 18-month training that starts, where you get to do that for yourself, and you get to learn how to facilitate others through that space too. So you up level, you upskill, you do it for you, and then you do it for others. Just as I do, and we get to do that together. And it's really, really epic, and it's really, really fun. So if that sounds good to you, reach out to me and I'll give you the right information. Emailing me is the best way to do it, or putting a comment below this video, and I'll get back in touch with you. And I'm just wishing all of you an amazing, epic eclipse event, a wonderful rest of week, and I'll see you on the inside. Thanks for being here. So much love.